And one of the older guys there, and it's so funny because this is like almost 40 years ago. I say much older guy, which means he was like my age now, right? Not an old guy.
Welcome, everybody, to today's episode, the 11th episode of Meet the Author here on Wisdom Cafe Live. My name is Bob Choat, and I'm the Transformational Grandmaster, along with my co-host, Sofie Nubani, the Queen of Laughter and Wisdom. And how are you doing today, Sofie?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm so excited for our very special and amazing guest today.
Yes. And let me introduce our guest. Bob Burg is, and I've known him for a little while now, and we're going to get into his book, the latest edition of the Go Giver series. Now, in their best-selling business parable, The Go Giver, and then their follow-up, The Go Giver Leader, Bob Burg and John David Mann challenged conventional wisdom about success. Now they're back with a new and equally compelling story about the power of genuine influence in business and beyond. The Go Giver Influencer, a little story about a most persuasive idea, tackles the paradox of achieving what you want by focusing in on other person's interest. No, not in a way that is self-sacrificial, but rather in such a way that all parties benefit greatly. This results in both immediate and long-term success. Bob Burg speaks all over the world on topics related to the Go Giver, as well as what he calls genuine influence. While his total book sales number well over 1 million copies, his and Mann's original book has itself sold over 850,000 copies and has spurred an international movement. In the new book, however, The Go Giver Influencer might just be their most important book of all. And I cannot wait to hear more about this from Bob, the premise of the book, which you heard about, and so much more. So, Bob, thank you. Thank you so much for being a guest on our show.
My pleasure, brother Bob and Super Sofie. It is so great to be with both of you.
Oh,
I am totally excited.
Yes. Yes. So this new book, because I've talked so much about the Go Giver and the Go Giver Leader and all your other books, which I have copies of. What was the basis of the book? What brought about, especially after the success of all your other books? Why did you come up with this idea?
Well, yes. Influence has been a part of the entire series. In the first book, in the Go Giver, there was law number 3, the law of influence. The Go Giver Leader was about leadership and influence and so forth. In this one, John David Mann and I wanted to take the concept of influence and kind of drive it deeper. We truly believe that those who have the ability to influence in a benevolent, beneficial way really are 9 steps ahead of the game in a 10-step game. They're able to create the environment of win-win for everybody, and do so in a way that can turn potential adversaries into allies, and really kind of nudge the world forward. So that was really why we made influence the focus of this one.
You know,
So
we've heard a lot about influence in a lot of different ways, and the word itself.
Right.
What is it that we're really talking about here?
I think that's a great question because, words have meanings and they tend to sometimes, especially in the day of the internet, they get so used and used up that they lose their meaning. So
yeah.
Hmm.
so looking at really the premise or even the definition of influence, I think on a very, very basic level, influence can be defined as simply the ability to move a person or persons to a desired action, usually within the context of a specific goal. That's the definition, but I don't believe that's the essence or the substance of influence. I believe the essence of influence is pull as opposed to push, as in the age old question, how far can you push a rope? And the answer, of course, is not very, at least not very fast or very effectively, which is why great influencers, or who we would call genuine influencers, don't push. You don't hear people say things like, wow, that David or that Mary, she is so influential. She has a lot of push with people.
Hmm.
No, she sure is pushy. Wow, what a great influencer. What, right now? They'd say she's very influential. She has a lot of pull with
Yes.
people because that's what influence is. It's pull. It's an attraction. And
Hmm.
great influencers attract people first to themselves and only then to their ideas.
Hmm. So in the story itself, I know that it talks about uh, Gillian Waters, I believe,
Mhm.
and Jackson Hill,
Uh-huh.
and like they're really like they're young business people. They're very ambitious, and in their negotiating a business deal that can make or break their careers.
Mhm.
So uh, each of them encounter, just like in the original Go Giver, they encounter a mentor or mentors who guide them to in essence, do or think differently.
Yeah.
What is that? What is that?
Well, the interesting thing about it is that, each of them had what the other wanted. Okay.
Mm,
And because of that, you'd think this is a business marriage made in heaven. Okay.
hmm.
But it turned out to be anything but that, because from the first meeting they had, they totally not only did not hit it off, but they were totally frustrated by the other. They had no understanding of the other, but that was the key. They had no understanding of one another. They were so focused on themselves, and they were good,
Mm,
both good people, but they were very focused on their own needs, and they really weren't trying
mm,
to get into that other person's mind and understand what the other person was looking for. And fortunately, their two mentors, because in this story, there instead of one protagonist and one mentor, there are two protagonists and two mentors, and
mm,
each of them coming at it from their own way, sort of showed both characters, hey, if you're going to have this, if you're going to influence another person, it's not about you. You're going to have to find out what motivates that other person. And this is really why, when you think about it, and we talk about pull as opposed to push, how do you really pull? Well, you make sure your focus is in the right place. You move from what we call an I focus or me focus to an other focus. So the genuine influencer will ask themselves questions such as, how does what I'm asking this other person to do, how does it align with their goals? How does it align with what they need, what they want, what they desire? How does what I'm asking this person to do, how does it align with their values? What problem is it solving for them? What benefit will it bring them? And when we ask ourselves these questions thoughtfully, intelligently, um, genuinely, authentically, not as a way to manipulate another human being into doing our will, but as a way of building everyone in the process, now we've come a lot closer to earning this person's commitment to our idea.
Okay. And I can see, Sophie, you have a question you want to ask.
Oh, no, I was just listening and observing,
Yeah.
but definitely from what I know about Bob and his character is amazing. And in today's time and corporate world, household world, pressure, everything that is around that is not necessarily serving the most common peace one can get on an outside world versus what they create for themselves. A lot have lost sight to even their own principles and values and ethics and integrity before they even project those kind of qualities out. They're just literally following maybe leaders who are not even in that way, and they're not even taking the time to question if what they're doing is authentic and is what they're doing is something that they value, or is it has by default became the routine that they live by on a daily basis. And it takes another time, and then you build a culture of an environment that is taking that lead, and until a servant leader and a person who really is with purpose serving and with a clear vision and mission to where they're going and why they're doing it comes and truly makes that impact. And you can really sense truism and the vibration of a person through their actions and their words. If you follow enough, it's going to be consistent. Or if it was very performed, at one point you can sense where there's something off if you follow them enough and let them speak long enough. And one thing I do admire a lot about all that anything I read for you or heard of you or, learned about you is just this beautiful reputation that you actually led by your a good example, and allowing people to step into their own power, and coming from, and I think, sometimes we do, catch from environments, and then some people are not as fortunate to have that, but then have another family that they chose in this lifetime to follow to better their lives. Just like I remember listening to one of your things when you talked about how you started being in a news anchor, and you're like, this is Bob. I would just say everything is good. Just go to sleep. If something
Oh,
goes
right.
wrong,
When I
I'll
was
let
doing
you
the
know.
news, right.
And I literally
Everything's
smiled
great.
in
Go
my
to sleep.
soul, and I was saying, you know what? If we all can just have that attitude and truly focus on how we can improve, how we can find solutions, how we can empower, how we can collaborate instead of compete, how we can really bring the best in every person's talent and gifts instead of being, competitive of how you can cut through the other person because maybe they said one extra line that is so intriguing and that might make that person win you over, versus, you know what, take that one line and learn from it and let it be a strength for your own creative juices that you're going to come up with the next time you develop an idea or something like that.
Well,
And
thank you. That's so
much
sweet.
respect to your mission,
Thank you.
to the way you lead, and truly it speaks volume because of the value you provide. And it's very noticeable what you teach is what you are practicing, and that's what makes it so special in today's time. It's so needed more than ever, and it's just a
I
blessing,
agree.
truly
Thank
a
you both.
blessing
That
to
touches me deeply. Thank you.
truly have this around, for us to have you around, for us to share you even more, and this is like what we need more than ever. So thank you so much for your contribution to humanity. you
Wow.
know
Well, thank
Well,
you.
yeah.
You
In
know how much
fact,
that means to me. Wow.
I know that even others have quoted the Go Giver itself in their books. Like, for example, Adam Grant has mentioned in Give and Take the Go Giver.
Yeah.
And
That was a wonderful book that Adam wrote. He really took that whole principle and took it to such a deep level. It was just it was a magnificent magnificent book. It remains one of my all-time favorites.
Yes, it's an excellent book. He put a lot in terms, especially the, like you said, the deeper aspects, the
Yeah.
intellectual aspects, because of his background.
Oh yeah.
Without the story, though, without the original story, and I think even in your case, because you had that shift in your mind at a certain period of time, and like each character in all the Go Giver books that had a mentor, you also had that as well. That helped to shift your mind, correct?
Yeah, well, I was very fortunate in that I was brought up by two wonderful, amazing parents, two wonderful,
Hmm.
amazing human beings. So I'm forever grateful that I was blessed in that
Right.
way. Um, and so, they would be what I would call the embodiment of go givers, even though that's not a word that was thought of or, used or
Hmm.
whatever, but they always brought value to the lives of others. And they always, great example. As
Mm.
I got into the business world, I started seeing, examples both good and bad.
Hmm.
And I think for a while, I think I got kind of fooled into that, the person who does things this way, you got to be the ruthless and this, and you got to do this and that. And you see some of the they might have some excuse me, quick successes, although typically not sustainable, and you think, oh, well, maybe that's the way to do it. But I kind of fortunately learned that lesson pretty quickly, because I started seeing
Hmm.
the examples of the people who were doing really, really well and loving what they did and being sustainably successful. They were the people who I would say are, do things the go giver way, even though they were doing it long before the book came out. But
Hmm.
what happened with me was I began to study sales because I knew nothing about selling. And once I began to study it and learn it and apply it, my sales went very well. And for a couple of years, I did well, but not nearly as well as I should have been doing. And I was sort of like
Hmm.
Joe in the original story, right?
Yes.
And I came back from a non-selling appointment. It was not non-selling by design. It was supposed to be a selling appointment, but I did not uh, do my job correctly in helping that person, see where it was. And I remember coming back, and I went to I was back in the office, and I was sort of, oh, I can't believe that prospect didn't get it right, as though it's his fault, right? Not mine. And and one of the older guys there, and it's so funny because this is like almost 40 years ago. I say much older guy, which means he was like my age now, right? Not an old guy, and he was not in sales. He was, I think, in the engineering department or something. But he's one of these guys. He didn't say much, but one of those who, when he said something, you knew it was always profound. And he said to me, Berg, can I give you some advice? And I said, yeah, please. And he said, if you want to make a lot of money in business, actually, he said, if you want to make a lot of money in sales, he said, don't have making money as your target. Your target is serving others. Now, when you hit the target, he said, you'll get a reward, and that reward will come in the form of money, and you can do with that money whatever you choose. But never forget, the money is simply the reward for hitting the target. It ain't the target itself. The target is serving others.
Hmm.
And that's when it really hit me that is what it's about. The sale is never about the salesperson. It's never about the product or the service, as important as the product or service is. It's always about the other person and how it's going to benefit them, what problems it's going to solve for them, how it's going to make their lives better. And this is where I think we have the law of value, and that's that focus on bringing such a remarkable experience for this person that they feel as though whatever they've paid, they've received so much more in value that it's just, there's no doubt they would do business with you again. They would tell others about you. They'd be your personal walking ambassador. And this is why John and I say that money is simply an echo of value.
Yes, I love
Hmm.
that statement.
Yes. Yes. And that's exactly what the Go Giver book series, each one of them that I've read through the years, each book. And if you haven't, if the people listening now has not read any of the books, start with the Go Giver. That's a foundation, and all the way up to the Go Giver Influencer. And there's many other books out there as part of the Go Giver series, and also there's other books that Bob Burg has done that I've read, and each one is powerful. And I can fully attest, just even starting with the Go Giver, that alone, when you talk about value, you're going to get so much out of it just learning through the story itself on how to properly be a go giver in a most profound way, all the way to the go giver influencer, how to use the process of go giving to influence people in the best possible way. So yeah, so this is just a little plug in. Now we'll continue along with
on that note, since you mentioned it, from Bob yourself, we have two Bobs. I'm sorry.
We have two Bobs. You got to make sure you dress the right one there, Sofie.
How often do we get to all be wearing the same colors and have two names at the same time? But is there a recommendation for those who are starting maybe into their career and into their journey? I remember years ago when I first even moved to the United States and started my sales career in the very beginning, I had the cassettes of Tom Hopkins, and I would listen to Zig Ziglar, because those,
two of my favorites.
At the time, that was what was available. And in your case, because of your system and the process and everything else that is implemented in the Go Giver, is there a recommendation to read them in order, or can somebody go in and actually read a book that's after the other and maybe still be able to catch on, or how does it work best for someone who is starting to go that route?
Yeah, well, they're written in such a way that they are all self-contained. And that's really the great writing of John David Mann, who's able to kind of frame things in such a brilliant way. So you could pick up any of them, and any of the three parables. There's 4 books altogether. 3 of them are parables, and you could do them in any order. But we would probably say, sure, the first one, and Bob had mentioned earlier, the Go Giver, it's sort of the foundational book, and then it builds on that. Also, while we don't repeat a lot of the characters, that each story takes place in the same fictional town, and there are some elements that are repeated, so that people who read the Go Giver first, and then the Go Giver leader, and then the Go Giver influencer, they'll kind of see some progression that they'll get. It'll almost be like an inside joke. They'll get why certain things have certain meanings, but you don't have to. You could read any of them in any order.
Okay, so it'll sink in and align, in where they can get the message clearly, regardless. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, I like the idea of the Go Giver influencer, because I also read Adversaries and Allies, and an excellent book. Not a parable, but it gives a lot of great ideas that I think are within the influencer, correct?
Yeah, and we took the basic ideas from Adversaries into Allies, and kind of we changed one of the laws, one of the rules, excuse me, but yeah, that it's basically that in story form. So
okay.
And the Adversaries into Allies is really, and again, as you said, that's a how-to book, so it's not a parable, but that's really, it's sort of the book I felt I was put on earth to write. So that has a very much of a meaning to me. But so
yeah, I love that book.
Thank you.
This is this is a book I think everybody should get. So besides the Go Giver, I'm going to suggest people to get that book as well.
No, thank you so much.
And I still have your original book that I've read, Endless Referrals.
Endless Referrals, right?
Yes.
That's written when I had dark hair. I don't know if you have that one or not. The original one was not, because there's 3 editions of it, and the first one came out in '94. I had jet black hair, and I'm on the telephone, and I look at it now. I said, "Did I really look like that? Did I actually have black hair?" I actually did.
Yeah, I think we both have black.
In service, we all got all these years of wisdom
Right.
learned from you.
That's why I
but
said
you have
right.
you well, see, you have hair, and I'm like this, so I got hair down here now, so
Yeah.
I had to put it somewhere.
Good. Like I said, yeah, you know, we were talking about age earlier. Bob and I were Sofie before you came on. I thought Bob was like 10 years younger than I am. Turns out he's actually older than I am. And I thought, wow, you know,
Oh,
I know.
yeah. We don't want to ask Bob like how many squats.
We're not going to get into that right
yeah,
now.
We're
no,
not going.
We're not going to get into that. But the truth is, you're like, yeah. Go ahead, Sofie.
Um, I- you are named as the king of referrals and networking.
Well, I think you guys named me that. I'm
Yes.
not sure.
Yeah, Sophie came up with that.
Thank you, Sofie.
So we kind of went with it.
Yeah. Based upon your experience in sales and gaining, you know, you're known for customer service. You're known for actually one of the very few people who actually responds personally to your comments to your audience, and that's very noticeable about you, and people can't miss it. And I have to say one thing about that. You meet so many people and they come with great gifts and a lot of beauty and admiration that they contribute in different ways. We all have different personalities, and in the end, you know, somebody benefits in different ways. This person might not be as expressive or as interactive, but your personal touch and truly responding and making a person feel special and respected. And you know, if I always tell, you know, if I'm gonna visit your house and I'm gonna drop like you know, something for you, whether it's you know, a food or flowers, and the least a person can acknowledge, even if it's a react, not a full comment, but it's like saying, you know what, thank you. And it's such a beautiful energy exchange between souls, and it creates a beautiful bonding, and it really makes the person, something about love and light and service truly feeds our souls in magical ways beyond just the result of what you see in the end. It's the character, and it is who the person truly is. And I've noticed that about you, and I really wanted to say
Mhm.
thank you.
Mhm.
I've even noticed you responding to our audience comments in person about them being excited to see you. And I have to want to tell you, really, thank you so much for that. It meant a lot to me, and I'm sure to them as well. So
Thank you.
your
Thank
bright light is just amazing.
Well,
Well, yeah.
you have a very nice way of making people feel special. Thank you so much for that, Sofie.
Oh,
Very nice.
Yeah, I have to concur with Sofie, because even like years ago, through social media and everything, and I saw how you respond to me and many others, and your amazing heart. Really, the go-giver is you. That's what, yeah. So, yeah. So people that are watching right now, again, grab the go-giver, and you have the go-giver right here, Bob Burg. And so,
I
yeah,
want
go.
to just give him a big hug.
Oh, we said we had a group hug. We talked about it.
Group hug. Yes, group hug. Yes.
Always time for a group hug.
Always time for a group hug. Going back, so let's go ahead and get through like the really important 5 secrets of genuine influence that is set forth within this book, and I think they're really powerful. What are those 5 secrets?
Well, the first one is to master your emotions. And
Mhm.
that's really where it all begins. The sages asked, who is a mighty person? And answered, that person who can control their own emotions and make of an enemy or of a potential enemy a friend. And it really begins there, because it's only when we're in control of ourselves and control of our emotions that we're even in a position to take a potentially negative situation or person and turn it into a win for everyone involved. And we all know this, and yet how often do we allow ourselves, based on what someone else says or does, and we cause ourselves to become frustrated or helpless or a victim or angry, right? And we say or do the very thing that's absolutely counterproductive to what we are trying to do, and we know better. So why do we
Mm.
do it? Well, the reason is because we're human beings, and as human beings, we're emotional creatures. It's how we're built. We like to think we're logical, and to a certain extent we are, of course, but we're pretty emotion driven. We
Mhm.
make major decisions based on emotion, and we back up those emotional decisions with logic. We rationalize, which in a sense means we tell ourselves rational lies, and
Yeah.
we
To
do this to
justify
justify.
why we're feeling somehow what we're feeling.
Exactly. And
Mhm.
so what we're not suggesting is that you deny your emotions, because first, that it would be incongruent with human nature, so it's not sustainable, but it's also not necessary. Emotions are a great part of life. They bring us joy. They make life worth while. No, but just make sure that you're the master of your emotions, as opposed to your emotions being the master of you. Or as one of our great friends, Dondi Scumaci, a great leadership speaker and author, as she says, take your emotions along for the ride, but make sure you are driving the car.
Mhm.
And that's really the key. As long as your decisions are being made from a logical base, by all means, consult your emotions, but make sure that, you're the person, it's that logical part of you that's making the decision, if you want to create the context where the results are typically going to be, more what you want. And that's really secret. And it's really not a secret, but what we call secret number one.
Mhm.
Secret number two is to step into the other person's shoes. Now, this one sounds kind of trite in a sense, because we've all heard that saying, step into the other
Mhm.
person's shoes. It sounds kind of easy. And you think about it, maybe it's not so easy when you realize that most of us have different sized feet. So
Mhm.
literally, we can't step into the other person's shoes, right? Figuratively, we can't step into their mind because we're not them, and
Yes.
we come from different ways of thinking, different belief systems. What is a belief? It's a subjective truth. It's the truth as you or I understand the truth to be, which means it's our truth. It's not necessarily the
Mhm.
truth, and it's
Correct.
based on our belief system, which is based on a combination of upbringing and environment and schooling and
Mhm.
news media. It's basically formed by the time we're little more than toddlers. Most of us grow up, we live our lives ruled by and what I call an unconscious operating system, where we think we're operating out of choice, but we're really typically operating within a matrix, if you will, right? Inside a
Yes.
and
Yes.
so, but we tend to also think that other people see the world the same way we do, because how else could that be, right? So, most conflict is the result of two people seeing the same thing from two different viewpoints based on their
Correct.
beliefs.
Mhm.
So, how do we overcome that? How do we then step into that other person's shoes? Well, we ask questions, and then we listen. But we listen not just with our ears. That's the kind of surface listening most of us do. That's the it's listening while we're really waiting our turn to speak. It's letting them have their 2 cents worth so that we can get in our 10 cents worth. So one of the mentors suggested, listen with your eyes, listen with your posture, listen with the back of your neck. In other words, put your entire being into listening to this
Okay.
person and understanding them. Now, when we do this, two great things happen. One is we begin to really understand them. We put ourselves in we've stepped into their shoes. We begin to understand what's driving them, what's motivating them, what can we do that will help them accomplish what they want, which is how we accomplish what we want. But the other thing is, when you listen like this, the other person feels listened to. They feel heard. And, Sophie, you were alluding to this earlier. People want connection. They want to feel understood by others. And when that happens, people are much more likely to like you. They're much more likely to trust you.
Yeah, listen with our soul.
Oh, wow. That's even better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yep.
I like that. Yeah. And so that's secret number 2. Now, secret number 3 is to set the proper frame. This one is so important because when you set the proper frame or reset someone's already negatively set frame, when you're able to reset it, you're really 90% of the way to attaining the results you want. So, we need to ask the question, what is a frame? What do we mean by frame?
Yes.
A frame is the foundation from which everything else takes place. And my favorite frame story has nothing to do with business, though it probably has everything to do with business. But I was in a Dunkin' Donuts restaurant about 3 or 4 years ago, and there was a little boy, a little toddler, probably 2.5 years old, who was running around the restaurant when his parents called him over to their table. So he starts to walk over and he slips. He takes a spill on the floor. Now, he didn't hurt himself, you could tell, but you could also tell he was very surprised. He was shocked. This was not within his realm of experience. So what does he do? Well, he looks over at his mom and dad in order to get their interpretation of the event. Okay. What happened. He kind of wanted to know, what does this really mean? Now, I truly believe that had his parents kind of gotten upset or panicky or, oh no, are you okay? He'd have started to cry. But what they did is they handled it so beautifully. They walked over quickly, but very calmly. And they had just a real nice energy about them. And, you could tell they weren't upset. They were calm. They began to, applaud and to smile and laugh. Oh, what a good trick that was. That looks like so much fun. And immediately the little boy began to laugh. Okay. What the parents did is they created they created a positive environment for him to be in. Okay. And so that's what a frame does. Now I say, okay, that's fine. But what about when someone comes to the table in a negative frame? And it might be that you're about to do a sales presentation and this prospective customer, they seem kind of defensive or uptight, or they're almost argumentative, and they kind of let you know that, yeah, I'm not buying, I'm not some easy mark. I'm not, whatever, who knows why they're where they are. But that's, again, we all come from our own beliefs. Now, we're not in the position right there to maybe delve deep right away. We can kind of start to do that, but what we can do is immediately reset the frame. Okay, because if we buy into that frame of adversaries, us against them, nobody's going to win. Okay, so what we might do to reset the frame is to simply, and let's say her name is Mary. We might say something like, Mary, while we've been able to help a lot of people with this product, whether or not it's the right solution for you, we simply can't know without exploring deeper and determining whether it meets your specific needs. So please know our conversation is for both of us to discover that. And if it does, great. If not, that's okay too.
And I love the way you used discover, because by nature of human beings, we are curious as a soul. We don't know tomorrow. It's what could happen.
Right.
The weather could be sunny and cloudy in the same day. There's an excitement about also walking into that, sometimes the unknown, and being able to be creative and bring in what you have in the moment. But when you put the word discover, I think discovering is always fun, because now for them also, they're going to learn something they didn't know about themselves. And you saying we're both going to discover that, it's like you are also part of that with them.
Exactly.
So
That.
I love
Yeah.
that word so much. I had to comment.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you. And so that's really what, setting a frame or resetting a frame is all about. Law number 4, or secret number 4, if you will, is, excuse me, is to communicate with tact and empathy. This one's so key. My dad has always defined tact as the language of strength.
Mm,
And I've always enjoyed that definition because to me, it does take a lot of strength to not just, react to what somebody says or does, to not fire off an email when someone says something, or during a political discussion and someone says something that can be insulting, to just all of a sudden get defensive and cut right. But instead, it means we think first. It means we take a moment. It means and so in a sense, tact is being able to communicate an idea to somebody that they ordinarily may not find agreeable, right? But doing so in such a way that not only are they not defensive toward us and resistant to our idea, but they're open to us and more receptive to our idea. Tact is what does that. Now, empathy, which by definition is the identification with or vicarious experiencing of another person's feelings. Well, this can be tricky because just like not being able to know what someone's thinking, we can't really know what someone's feeling if we're not them.
mhm.
And maybe we've had similar experiences, and if we have, great, we communicate that, but that's not necessarily always the case. And sometimes we don't understand how they feel. We often don't. But empathy is not necessarily that you understand how they feel. It's communicating that you understand they're feeling something, and that this something is causing them distress, and that you're there to help them through it. That combination of tact and empathy is absolutely powerful in terms
Very
of being an
powerful.
Mm,
influencer.
yes.
And you mentioned opening a person up, and if anybody's closed up, literally, they'll never be able to. You can never influence them.
Oh, that's true. That's right.
Bottom line.
Mhm.
So having a tactful, tact and empathy as a law or an application to be very
Mhm.
aware of and mindful in doing so is very powerful, because now you anchor to those two words alone. It's going to make you aware, like, wait a minute, if someone wasn't aware of that, like your dad said, tact is like a strength, and it is truly is very, it's a demands authority from a person to be tactful. That means it talks a lot about their grounding, their themselves as a character, as a person, and as a leader. Because if you just react as a human being all the time, you're not listening with your soul to the other person.
Well, and this is why I think consciousness is so important, because if we're not conscious of this, it's very easy to just get caught up, right, in the emotion of everything, and to think it's about us, and to let someone else set an unintentional frame just because people do it naturally. Frames are always set. In fact, one of the judge in the story, she told Jackson, who was her protege, she said, in every interpersonal situation, a frame will be set. The only question is who's going to set it. If the other person does, you're kind of taking the chance that they know how to set a good, positive, beneficial win-win frame. Chances are they don't, because most people don't study these kind of things. So that's why we need to be
Yes.
conscious of it. And it's the same with tact and empathy. And it kind of leads on to the last secret, which is to let go of having to be right. And
Uh-huh.
this one's counterintuitive because, well, influence, aren't we trying to be right? Don't we want to be right? Well, of course, absolutely. We're human beings. We want to be right, and we're going to prepare to be right, and we're going to do our best to be right. But what we mean is we let go of the attachment to having to be right. And when we do this, a wonderful thing happens. We go into learner's mode, and
Uh-huh.
we create the context where we can know more than what we know now. And so what it means really is that we know we may not be 100% right, or right at all, or we may be. And let's open ourselves up to this other person's idea. Now, that doesn't mean you have to agree with it. Of course not. We want to be logical, and you want to think, things through and question premise. Absolutely. Um, but what happened, but that's different from the person who, my mind's made up. Don't confuse me with the facts, right? And we see so many of those people. Well, they can't learn anything. They can't know anything more than what they know now. And typically, people who are like that don't really know as much as they think they do. Confidence in one's correctness should never be confused with actual correctness, right? And so a lot of times, the less.
That's a powerful statement right there.
Oh, thank you,
Absolutely.
thank you. And so what happens is when you let go of having to be right, two great things. One, you learn more, so you increase the odds actually that you are right. But secondly, when the other person understands that they're dealing with someone who's not just looking to be right, just to be right, for the sake of being right, who's certainly not looking to be right at my expense, right? Now they have a lot more trust. Now they have a lot less defensiveness. Now they're much more open to your idea. So the paradox is that the more you're able to let go of having to be right, not only are you more likely to be right, but you're more likely to have your idea accepted and be more influential.
Because there's no resistance from the other party. They're
Exactly.
surrendering and feeling open and safe to that person.
Right.
Very
Exactly.
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yes, very beautiful. I like all 5 of those secrets. And again, another plug, those of you that are watching the Go-Giver Influencer, and I'm going to suggest that you get all the books of the Go-Giver series and Adversaries and the Allies if you want the how-to book of that, and marry it up with the Go-Giver Influencer to make a powerful combination that you can learn and apply. And by the way, Bob, just the secrets that you've given tonight and everything you've given, I think if people were to just apply those just within it, they're going to get so much out of it. Yes, truly apply it. They're going to get so much out of it. But again, take the next step and go to Amazon.com or Barnes and Noble. Go to Burg.com, Burg.com, and you'll get more details on this. Right, Bob?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I know that you also have an ambassadors program for those who are, really aligned with the mission and the vision and being the authentic leader and a servant. And I think that as a whole, as a universe, as a world, when each of us contributes in their different strengths, what they can provide to the betterment of all, it is such a beautiful thing that when we contribute, collaborate, and connect versus compete and all of on having conflict, the opposite is just so amazing and magical when we truly are in that space and vibration. So what can I say, Bob? I mean, I'm speechless. I don't know what to say, but you are just amazing.
Thank you. Likewise, my friend. Thank
Can
you.
I tell you that you're amazing again?
Only if I can say you're even more amazing.
Oh, blessings.
And both of you are amazing. I have an amazing partner in this and an amazing brother in Bob.
Likewise, brother Bob. Likewise.
Absolutely, Bob. We are, as a team, as a human team, soul relationships and, connection and everything else. Higher thinkers. It is, I feel accountable as a person to always be in service to what I can and know how to do best. And nobody hired me for it, or I just personally hired myself for that job.
That's right. That's the best way.
And it's just such a beautiful thing to truly, truly see people who are making such a huge influence in authentic base and manners. I mean, it just my whole, I just feel like I want to dance and just be, I love seeing this so much that it is amazing how a voice, and we're grateful for all this technology as well, because without it, it won't touch as many people and impact even more and spread even more. And just imagine if only one person today got something where this was truly mastered and applied. And what a difference that person would have, and then what a difference that person is making into their personal environment.
Right.
And yes, together we can make a big difference, and this is what it boils down to. So thank you so much again
Yes,
for being
thank you
on
so
our
much.
show.
Yes, and if anybody wants to hire you either as a speaker or for their event or any way of doing that, how would they get in contact with you?
Best way is just through either Burg.com or thegogiver.com, either one.
Okay.
That works. Thank you.
And
You're
I know
welcome.
you're on LinkedIn and a lot of platforms, and definitely you're out there and reachable.
And and I know that because Sofie mentioned the ambassador program, in which I actually joined years ago. How would somebody go about if they want to become an ambassador, a Go-Giver ambassador? How would they go about doing that?
Yeah, well, you know what we have now? We changed the name to Go Giver Influencer.
Go-Giver influencer.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's the same that same thing, and it's a Facebook group that we have, and Kathy or
Oh, nice.
Shannon will put out a really cool quote with a graphic every day, and there's usually discussion around it, and
Perfect.
great group. And if they're on Facebook, they can just go do a search for Go Giver Influencers. Or if they go to thegogiver.com and they scroll down just a little bit, it will take them to a page that says join the movement.
Got it.
And so forth. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Perfect. Again, Bob, we want to thank you for being on our show, and we look forward to talking again, maybe
I wanted to
in
know
the
his
future.
favorite coat.
You what?
Oh, so she wants to know your favorite quote and why before we go.
Because you're one of those few who have actually your real own ones that are
Your
amazing.
yes, your own quotes, including one I shared about characters. So
Yes.
Okay, let's see. So do you want a quote from me or a favorite quote that I
Let's
have
do
from
two,
someone else?
both. One
Okay.
that you really, was an inspiration to your journey and you love, and one that of yours that you really,
Okay.
it's
So
hard to have a favorite, but you
let's
kind of.
see. Well, the quote that I've probably been most known for over the last 30 years is that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. My favorite quote, though, probably of all time, was Zig Ziglar's often misquoted quote that actually goes, "You can have everything in life you want if you just help enough other people get what
they want." Love that.
I love the voice. Wait,
And
is that a talent that we don't know about?
It's another talent that you have there, Bob.
Yeah, right.
and it's interesting that you mentioned Zig, because 2 weeks ago we had one of Zig's friends on, and that was Ben Gay III.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Well, I remember his book. I read Mr. Gay's book, I think back when I was I was probably 2 years into my sales career. I think that was The Closer, if I remember that correctly.
Yes,
that's right.
Yes.
And that was a great book.
He's a legend of his time.
And he just came out with The Closers 3. So.
Oh, did he really?
Yes.
Yes.
So his series, and you came out with yours on the influencer.
Right.
That's
right.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. But I remember reading
the
his book. It was back in the
ambition
80s.
and the growth mindset, like it's always ever growing and evolving to what's better, what's new that we can help with today's time and issues that we're facing as things change here and there. And definitely we need that insight and wisdom from those who mastered the craft. Definitely.
Yes. So again, Bob, we want to thank you for being on, and want to thank everybody for tuning in to get some great insights here from the Bob Burg. So grab the Go Giver series.
Again.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.